Hello, my name is Thomas. Welcome to British Culture Albion Never Dies. About 10 years ago, I read this book by Ben Macintyre called Operation Mincemeat. It's the true life tale of espionage during the Second World War, an operation to deceive the enemy. And about, a few days ago, I watched this movie. It's, yes, I still get DVDs. It's the movie of the true life history. Of course, this is a straightforward history book, very well written. This is a pretty straightforward costume drama. A book is a book, a film is a film. They do very different things. So it's not a case of which one is better, but having seen the film and having read the book, I just thought I'd give a handful of observations, literally just 5 things that really stood out to me having watched the movie. The first thing that really stood out to me was the inclusion of an American character in a very prominent role and the depiction of Americans in one of the 5 action shots that are in the film. No big spoiler there. I just thought that was interesting because in real life there's a photograph taken of the lady who's the leading lady in this film. It was taken by, someone in the Grenadier Guards. I thought it was interesting they changed that to be American. The cynic in me thought, I wonder if that's, to distribute to the American market, in The Great Escape. No Americans were involved in the actual breakout, but they were put into the film, giving us the great Steve McQueen moment, because to distribute in America, the British filmmakers needed an American star. That was just the condition of releasing in the US, so that's not too unusual. On the other hand, Battle of Britain, the movie directed by Guy Hamilton, the director of Goldfinger, has fantastic bits with the Polish airmen, for many the most memorable bits, and that's not really made, I think, with a view to distributing to Poland. Equally in Zulu, you have a bit of a focus on the Swiss character and on the Boer character. I don't think, again, that's in there to distribute to Switzerland or South Africa. Sometimes I think it's just a part of the British character that we like to look outwards, we like to broaden the story, so it could be there because of that, but it is unusual, to my mind, not to focus on the British landings in Italy during the war and rather to focus on the Americans. That was something that really stood out to me because this is a very British movie. The second thing that really stood out to me was the inclusion of scriptural references. So the lead character in the movie, Montague, was Jewish, and this is referenced in the film. It is true to life, and they do refer to, what to a Christian is the Old Testament. And I found that really interesting because the effect it has on the film is they make references that for a church-going Christian or to a synagogue-going Jewish watcher seems very, very present. It feels current. It feels something you can connect with. Of course, society at this time during the Second World War was far more church-going, so that is true to the reality, and it's something that's not often shown, I think, in World War dramas. They often don't show the fact that the church played a much bigger role in people's lives than it perhaps does today in contemporary society. So I found it very good for both setting society in the right place historically, but also if they'd been referring to movies at the time, songs at the time, that would actually put a bit of distance between myself and the characters. The fact that they're referencing somebody, having the patience of Job, for me, that actually brought the characters a bit closer, so I really liked it. The third thing I thought was just an interesting choice, one that I really don't understand. This movie is largely set in London during the Second World War. That's a not uncommon setting, and generally when you do that, you show the Blitz, or at least the bombing of London. So we're past 1940. We are in what's commonly referred to as the lull between 41 and 44, but bombs are still dropping. There are still air raid sirens going off, and yet the characters happily wander through London. We don't see any debris, we don't hear an air raid siren going off, nobody seems to dive into a shelter or whatever. There are kind of references to it, and again, I've only seen this film once, so maybe there's something I missed, but the fact that it was missable does seem very, very interesting. After all, even the TV show Doctor Who was able to have, a Blitz episode. So it feels like a very unusual choice to show the characters kind of wandering around at night, but not in any real danger. I found that a really interesting choice, one that I actually struggled to understand. The fourth thing that really stood out to me was the blending of, fact, fiction, myth, reality. We do have Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, portrayed in this film, and there are references actually to a few different novels, and I think here it's worth returning to the original book by Ben Macintyre. Here he says it's no accident that both Montagu and Cholmondeley were both enthusiastic novel readers. The greatest writers of spy fiction have, in almost every case, worked in intelligence before turning to writing. Somerset Maugham, John Buchan, Ian Fleming, Graham Greene, John le Carré all had experienced the world of espionage at first hand. For the task of the spy is not so very different from that of the novelist, to create an imaginary, credible world and then lure others into it by words and artifice. So I did find that very interesting. There was a reference from characters of, oh, are we getting another novelist joining this crew or something like that? So I did enjoy that, and it does have, well, what to the modern viewer seems very much like direct references. Well, to the world of James Bond, Fleming did draw on his wartime experiences very, very much. The fifth and final part would just be the performance of the actors. This is a Colin Firth movie. If you've seen him before, well, you're seeing him again do much the same thing. You have Matthew MacFadyen, who played, well, the lead character in Spooks, I think for the first 2 seasons, and he was a very, very good spook. He is great at portraying complex, interesting, nuanced characters, and I very, very much enjoyed his character, Cholmondeley, here. But the stand-up performance to me was actually Jason Isaacs. Now, he plays Admiral Godfrey, the man who Ian Fleming based M upon. So if you think of the classic M from the Sean Connery and Roger Moore films, that version of M was very much inspired by a real admiral, the head of naval intelligence during the Second World War. Jason Isaacs plays the real man and stood out in this film in the best possible way. In fact, I struggled to think of any other actor who could do M quite as well as Ralph Fiennes, but I think here Jason Isaacs does really, really well. So those are my 5 things that I noticed watching this film. If you're interested in the real history, the procedural complexities of espionage, this book I thought was really, really good, and you can pick up a copy pretty easily. It is more than a decade old now. The film I enjoyed, but as a sweet distraction for an hour or 2. I may at some point watch it again.